How did Vikings make oil lamps that burned for 24 hours straight? In the depths of a Scandinavian winter, where darkness reigns for 18 hours each day and temperatures plunge far below freezing, this question takes on urgent meaning. Imagine a longhouse buried in snow, wind howling through gaps in the timber walls, and inside, families huddled against the cold. Without reliable light, life would grind to a halt. Yet the Norse people not only survived these conditions, they thrived, conducting intricate craftwork, sharing stories, and maintaining their communities through the longest nights. The secret lay in a deceptively simple technology that archaeological evidence shows could burn steadily from dusk until dawn without intervention. But achieving this required a precise understanding of materials, fuel chemistry, and design principles that modern science is only now beginning to fully appreciate. The story begins not with the Vikings themselves, but 40,000 years earlier. Archaeological evidence from Upper Paleolithic sites across France reveals that humans have been burning animal fat for illumination since approximately 38,000 BCE. Research conducted by Sophie de Boon and Randall White documented 285 stone lamps from 105 different sites, each representing humanity's first attempts to control fire for extended lighting. These early lamps were crude by later standards, simple hollowed stones or naturally concave rocks. But they established the fundamental principle that would remain unchanged for millennia. A reservoir of fuel, a fibrous wick, and careful control of oxygen flow. The technology evolved slowly but purposefully. By the Mesolithic period, between 6000 and 4000 BCE, communities around the Baltic Sea were producing sophisticated ceramic oil lamps. Analysis conducted by Harry Robson and colleagues in 2022 examined organic residues from 115 such lamps across 25 archaeological sites. Their findings revealed that these ancient craftspeople burned fats from marine mammals, freshwater fish, and terrestrial animals, selecting fuels based on availability and performance characteristics. The lamps themselves ranged from 6 to 30 centimeters in length, with shallow bowls less than 5.5 centimeters deep. This specific geometry was no accident. It maximized the surface area for fuel while minimizing the depth, which allowed for better oxygen access and more complete combustion. When Norse settlers established communities across Scandinavia during the Viking Age, roughly 800 to 1100 CE, they inherited this ancient knowledge and refined it to near perfection. Excavations at Birka, Sweden's first urban center on Björkö Island, have yielded ceramic lamps with a distinctive feature: a central clay post rising from the bowl's base. This design innovation, catalogued as Object 227700-759 at the Historiska Museet in Stockholm, represents a breakthrough in lamp engineering. The post measured approximately 80 millimeters in diameter and 45 millimeters in height, creating a structure around which wicks could be wrapped in a spiral pattern. This configuration increased the effective burning surface while maintaining fuel economy, a critical consideration in environments where every resource carried precious value. The material science behind these lamps demonstrates sophisticated understanding of thermal properties. Norse craftspeople selected local earthenware clay and mixed it with temper, non-plastic materials added to reduce thermal stress during firing. Archaeological analysis shows they used sand, crushed shells or organic matter in ratios of approximately 20% temper to 80% clay by volume. This tempering served multiple functions. It created microscopic voids within the clay matrix that absorbed thermal expansion, prevented cracking during the firing process, and improved the lamp's resistance to thermal shock when exposed to flame. The firing itself occurred at temperatures between 600 and 900 degrees Celsius, achievable in well-constructed wood fires. The resulting terracotta possessed sufficient porosity to remain stable under heat while being dense enough to hold liquid fuels without excessive seepage. But the true ingenuity lay in fuel selection and preparation. The Vikings understood what modern chemistry has confirmed. Not all fats burn equally. Research by Paul Blinkhorn and colleagues, published in Medieval Archaeology, analyzed organic residues from 3 pottery lamps excavated at Berkeley, Gloucestershire. Their findings conclusively identified ruminant fat, tallow from cattle or sheep, as the primary fuel, with chemical signatures that excluded beeswax, plant oils, fish oil, and butter. This preference arose from tallow's specific molecular structure. When animal fat undergoes rendering, extended heating at low temperatures, the triglycerides separate from proteins and water, producing a purified fuel with a melting point between 42 and 48 degrees Celsius. This narrow range proved ideal, solid at room temperature for easy storage and handling, yet liquefying readily when exposed to flame heat. The rendering process itself required patience and precision. Norse craftspeople collected sweat, the hard fat from around animal organs, and heated it slowly in ceramic vessels. As temperatures rose above the fat's melting point, but remained well below water's boiling point, the triglycerides liquefied and floated to the surface, while impurities settled or were skimmed away. This purification removed proteins that would otherwise char and produce smoke, water that would cause sputtering, and tissue fragments that could clog wicks. The result was a stable, clean-burning fuel that could be stored for months without spoiling. A crucial advantage in societies that slaughtered livestock seasonally and needed to preserve resources through long winters. Marine mammals provided an alternative fuel source, particularly in coastal and island communities. Archaeological evidence from longhouses in Norway, Iceland, and Greenland reveals residues of whale oil and seal blubber in soapstone lamps. These marine fats possessed different characteristics than terrestrial tallow. Whale oil, extracted from blubber through similar rendering processes, contained higher proportions of unsaturated fats, giving it a lower melting point and greater fluidity. Seal oil burned with particular efficiency because of its high concentration of omega-3 fatty acids, which produced less smoke and more complete combustion. Historical accounts and experimental archaeology suggest that a single bowhead whale could yield hundreds of gallons of oil, enough to illuminate an entire community through a winter season. The wick represented the third critical component, and its composition determined the lamp's burn characteristics as fundamentally as the fuel itself. Archaeological preservation rarely captures organic wick materials, but residue analysis and experimental reconstruction have identified the most effective options. De Boon and White's research on Paleolithic lamps found that wicks of lichen, moss, and juniper bark outperformed alternatives like grass or reed. These materials shared crucial properties: a fibrous structure that created capillary channels for fuel absorption, sufficient rigidity to maintain shape when saturated, and cellular composition that burned slowly rather than flashing into ash. Twisted moss proved particularly effective in Viking contexts. Sphagnum moss and other species, common to Scandinavian wetlands, possessed remarkable absorbency, capable of holding liquid up to 20 times their dry weight, while their cell walls contained lignin that resisted rapid combustion. The Vikings prepared moss wicks through a simple but precise process: selecting dry moss, rolling it between the palms to break down cellular structure and create a fuzzy texture, then twisting it into loose 2-ply cords approximately 5 to 8 millimeters in diameter. This diameter was not arbitrary. Experimental archaeology demonstrates that thinner wicks burn faster but produce less light, while thicker wicks consume fuel rapidly and generate excessive smoke. The optimal diameter balanced fuel draw with oxygen access, creating a flame that stood roughly 2 to 3 centimeters high. Linen wicks, made from flax fibers, offered an alternative with different performance characteristics. The process of transforming flax into linen was labor-intensive, requiring retting, scutching, and spinning, which made linen wicks more valuable than moss. However, their tightly woven structure provided superior fuel channeling. Capillary action, the ability of liquid to flow through narrow spaces without external force, drew melted tallow up through the linen's microscopic gaps at a consistent rate. Modern measurements of historical lamp reproductions show that linen wicks, approximately 1 centimeter in diameter, consumed fuel at a rate of 1/4 to 1/2 ounce per hour, depending on flame height and fuel viscosity. The geometry of the lamp bowl itself played a crucial role in achieving extended burn times. Archaeological finds show remarkable consistency in proportions. Width typically exceeded depth by ratios between 3.1 and 5.1. This shallow design served multiple functions. First, it maximized the fuel surface area exposed to air, promoting more efficient evaporation and combustion of volatile compounds. Second, it maintained the fuel pool at a relatively consistent temperature, preventing the cooling that would cause tallow to resolidify. Third, it allowed multiple wicks to be deployed simultaneously, without interfering with each other's oxygen supply. The central post design, found in the Burka lamp, exploited an additional principle. By wrapping a wick in a spiral around the post, craftspeople created a burning system where the flame's heat radiated inward, keeping the surrounding fuel liquefied through convection. The post itself absorbed and distributed heat throughout its ceramic structure, creating a thermal reservoir that stabilized temperature fluctuations. This meant that even as the fuel level dropped over hours of burning, the remaining tallow stayed warm enough to flow readily to the wick. Experimental recreations of this design demonstrate that with proper fuel levels and wick adjustment, the lamp could maintain consistent light output for 20 to 24 hours on a single fill of approximately 6 to 8 ounces of tallow. Lamp placement within the longhouse reflected sophisticated understanding of heat management and safety. Archaeological evidence from floor plans shows that lamps were typically positioned on stone bases or in shallow depressions carved into wooden platforms. These elevated positions served dual purposes. They prevented accidental tipping and improved air circulation around the flame. The longhouse environment, while dark, was not stagnant. Smoke holes in the roof created natural convection currents that drew fresh air through gaps in the lower walls and expelled combustion products upward. Positioning lamps in this airflow ensured adequate oxygen supply while directing smoke away from work areas and sleeping spaces. The versatility of these lamps extended beyond simple illumination. In craft workshops excavated at Birka and Hedeby, archaeologists have found lamp concentrations near areas associated with metalworking, textile production, and fine carving. Experimental archaeology by Blinkhorn and colleagues compared light output from replica Viking lamps with rushlights, the period's cheapest alternative, made by dipping dried rush stems in tallow. Their measurements revealed that a 3-wick oil lamp produced illumination equivalent to 3 modern candles, with significantly less flickering and more consistent brightness than rushlights. The steady flame enabled precision work. The intricate interlacing patterns on metalwork, the fine stitching of textiles, and the detailed carving of bone and wood that characterize Viking craftsmanship. Temperature stability represented another crucial advantage. Unlike open fires that required constant feeding and produced unpredictable heat, oil lamps burned at consistent temperatures between 800 and 1000 degrees Celsius at the flame's hottest point. While this heat dissipated rapidly with distance, the lamp's immediate vicinity maintained warmth sufficient for small-scale tasks. Jewelers working with delicate silver wire could keep their materials pliable near the flame. Craftspeople applying decorative elements to ceramics could ensure proper drying conditions. Even food preparation benefited. Small pots positioned over lamps could keep broths warm or gently simmer herbal infusions through the night. The social dimension of lamp technology should not be underestimated. In a society where winter nights stretched endlessly, the ability to maintain light transformed domestic life. Families gathered around lamps to share oral traditions, the flickering light casting shadows that animated stories of gods, heroes, and ancestors. Skilled skalds, the poet-historians of Norse culture, performed their intricate verses, their faces illuminated against the darkness. Archaeological evidence from Birka includes imported Finnish pottery found near lamp concentrations, suggesting that trade negotiations and diplomatic exchanges often occurred during lamplit evening gatherings. The extended burn time meant these social activities could continue without interruption, reinforcing community bonds and cultural transmission. Maintenance of these lamps required knowledge passed through generations. The Vikings understood that wick positioning determined everything. Too much wick exposed to air created a tall, smoky flame that wasted fuel and deposited soot. Too little wick produced a weak, flickering light that could extinguish unexpectedly. The ideal position placed the wick's tip just at the fuel surface level, where capillary action drew liquid tallow up as fast as combustion consumed it. Experienced lamp tenders could judge this position by sound, A steady flame produced a soft, consistent crackling, while sputtering indicated improper fuel flow. Fuel quality degradation posed another challenge. Even properly rendered tallow could develop off flavors and reduced performance if exposed to air for extended periods. Oxidation of unsaturated fats produced compounds that burned less cleanly and generated unpleasant odors. The Vikings addressed this through careful storage in sealed ceramic vessels, often underground, where cool temperatures slowed chemical reactions. When filling lamps, they warmed tallow gently, either by placing vessels near the hearth or by mixing in small amounts of freshly rendered fat to ensure proper liquidity and distribution. The seasonal rhythms of Viking life synchronized with lamp technology. Autumn slaughter of livestock provided fresh tallow when days grew shorter and lamp usage increased. Summer months, with their extended daylight, required minimal artificial lighting, allowing tallow stores to accumulate. This seasonal pattern created a sustainable cycle. Rendering and storing during abundance, measured consumption during scarcity. Archaeological evidence suggests that wealthier households maintained tallow reserves sufficient for the entire winter, while poorer families might supplement with fish oil or even resin-based fuels during resource shortages. The distribution of lamps across the Viking world reveals patterns of trade and cultural exchange. Soapstone lamps, carved from the soft metamorphic rock known as steatite, appear throughout Norwegian coastal sites and in Norse colonies in Iceland, Greenland, and the Shetlands. This distribution follows the geological availability of soapstone deposits, primarily in western Norway. The carved lamps, some featuring suspension holes for hanging, represent significant labor investment. Hours of patient work with basic tools to hollow out the stone and smooth its surfaces. Their presence in distant settlements indicates either direct trade networks or the migration of craftspeople carrying both tools and knowledge. Ceramic lamps show different distribution patterns, concentrated in areas with suitable clay deposits and established pottery traditions. Eastern England, with extensive Scandinavian settlement during the Viking Age, produced distinctive pottery lamps in two forms: cresset lamps with spike bases for insertion into soft ground, and pedestal lamps with flat bases for stable surfaces. Analysis of clay composition and temper materials in these English lamps shows regional variation, with eastern sites using shell-tempered clay, while western sites employed crushed rock, reflecting local geological resources and established traditions. The transition away from oil lamps reveals changing social and technological landscapes. By the 12th century, archaeological evidence shows declining lamp production across much of Scandinavia, coinciding with increased availability of beeswax candles and improved tallow candle technology. Candles offered advantages in portability and ease of use, though they sacrificed the fuel efficiency and extended burn times of lamps. The shift also reflects broader economic changes. As Norse society became more integrated into European trade networks, imported products like beeswax became accessible to a wider population. Additionally, architectural evolution toward larger windows and different interior layouts reduced reliance on artificial lighting. However, in marginal environments, Arctic settlements, remote islands, and frontier regions, traditional lamp technology persisted for centuries. The Inuit peoples of the Arctic developed parallel lamp technologies, including the Qualic soapstone lamp that burns seal oil with moss wicks, demonstrating the universal effectiveness of these principles in extreme northern conditions. When Norse settlers established communities in Greenland during the 10th century, they adopted these Arctic lamp designs, recognizing their superior performance in the harsh climate. This technological exchange illustrates how environmental pressures drive innovation and adaptation, transcending cultural boundaries. Modern experimental archaeology continues to refine our understanding of Viking lamp technology. Researchers like Erik Kralke have recreated these lamps using traditional materials and methods, documenting every step from clay collection through firing and use. Their findings confirm historical burn times and light output, while revealing subtle details lost to written records. For example, lamps fired in open wood fires rather than in closed kilns develop subtle color variations and minor imperfections that actually improve thermal shock resistance. The uneven heat exposure creates microstructural variations that help distribute stress, reducing catastrophic failures. These experiments also illuminate the learning curve required to master lamp technology. First attempts frequently crack during firing or leak when filled, teaching modern craftspeople the patience and precision that Viking children would have absorbed through years of observation and practice. Successful lamp creation requires attention to clay consistency, proper drying times, careful temperature management during firing, and understanding of how different woods create varying kiln atmospheres. This embodied knowledge, skills learned through doing rather than verbal instruction, formed the foundation of Viking technical expertise across all crafts. The chemistry of combustion in these lamps deserves closer examination. When tallow burns, the heat first vaporizes liquid fat molecules, breaking complex triglycerides into smaller hydrocarbon chains. These vapor molecules mix with oxygen from surrounding air, and when temperature reaches approximately 400 degrees Celsius, rapid oxidation occurs, the visible flame. Complete combustion converts hydrocarbons to carbon dioxide and water vapor, releasing energy as light and heat. Incomplete combustion produces carbon monoxide and particulate carbon, soot, which indicates insufficient oxygen or excess fuel. The Vikings' shallow bowl design promoted complete combustion by maximizing air access, resulting in the clean burning characteristics noted in experimental archaeology. The flame itself exhibits complex fluid dynamics. Hot combustion gases rise through convection, creating a characteristic teardrop shape. This rising column of gases draws fresh air inward at the flame's base, establishing a self-sustaining circulation pattern. The visible yellow-orange color comes from incandescent carbon particles, tiny fragments of partially burned fuel that glow white-hot before oxidizing completely. Blue coloration at the flame's base indicates regions of complete combustion where temperature is highest and carbon particles are instantly consumed. The specific color balance and flame height provided Vikings with visual feedback about lamp performance, allowing real-time adjustments to wick position and fuel levels. Sound provided another diagnostic tool. A properly functioning lamp produces a soft, steady sound. The quiet crackling of fuel vaporization and combustion. Popping or sputtering indicates water contamination in the fuel, which vaporizes explosively when heated. Silence might suggest insufficient fuel draw, requiring wick adjustment. Hissing could indicate draft problems or fuel impurities. This acoustic monitoring allowed lamp tenders to identify and correct problems in darkness, or while focusing attention elsewhere, a practical necessity in busy household environments. The psychological impact of reliable lighting cannot be overstated. Modern studies of seasonal affective disorder demonstrate how reduced light exposure affects mood, energy, and cognitive function. For Viking communities enduring Scandinavian winters, where December daylight might last only 6 hours, artificial lighting literally sustained mental health and social cohesion. The warm, steady glow of tallow lamps provided not just illumination, but psychological comfort. A bubble of human control within the surrounding darkness and cold. This explains why lamps appear in burial contexts, placed beside the dead as provisions for the journey to the afterlife, suggesting they held significance beyond mere utility. Economic calculations reveal the true value of extended burn times. A gallon of rendered tallow, weighing approximately 7 pounds, contains roughly 15,000 calories of energy. At a consumption rate of 1/2 ounce per hour, this gallon would provide approximately 256 hours of light, more than 10 full days of continuous burning. For a household using a lamp for 6 hours each winter evening, 1 gallon sufficed for over 40 nights. This efficiency meant that a single cow's fat, reserves, properly rendered, could illuminate a household through an entire winter season. The 24-hour burn capacity therefore represented not just technical achievement, but significant economic advantage, reducing the labor of lamp tending and allowing precious fuel stores to stretch further. So when we ask ourselves, how did Vikings make oil lamps that burned for 24 hours straight? The answer emerges as a tapestry of interconnected knowledge. They understood materials, science, selecting and tempering clay to withstand thermal stress. They mastered chemistry, rendering animal fats to remove impurities and create clean burning fuels. They applied fluid dynamics, designing bold geometries that optimized fuel surface area and oxygen access. They experimented with textiles, creating wicks that balanced capillary action against combustion rates. They recognized thermodynamics, positioning lamps to exploit natural convection currents. And they did all this without formal scientific training, guided instead by careful observation, incremental experimentation, and the accumulated wisdom of countless generations. The Viking oil lamp represents more than historical curiosity. It exemplifies human ingenuity confronting environmental challenges with limited resources. In an era increasingly concerned with sustainability and resilience, these ancient technologies offer lessons in efficiency and adaptation. A lamp that burns for 24 hours on 8 ounces of animal fat, a byproduct of meat consumption, demonstrates energy density and utilization that modern LED technology is only beginning to match in terms of resource investment. The Vikings created a sustainable lighting system using renewable fuels, durable materials, and designs that required no rare resources or complex manufacturing. This legacy endures in unexpected places. Remote communities worldwide still employ similar technologies where electrical infrastructure remains absent or unreliable. The principles discovered by Paleolithic lamp makers and refined by Viking craftspeople Controlled fuel delivery, optimized air-fuel mixing, and efficient heat management underlie everything from modern oil lamps to jet engines. The same capillary action that drew tallow through moss wicks now powers advanced fuel cells. The thermal management strategies visible in shallow ceramic bowls inform modern heat exchanger design. Perhaps most significantly, Viking lamp technology reminds us that sophisticated engineering requires neither advanced mathematics nor industrial infrastructure. It emerges from patient observation, systematic experimentation, and deep respect for materials and their properties. The craftsperson who could keep a lamp burning steadily through the longest winter night possessed knowledge as valuable as any modern engineering degree. Knowledge earned through practice, refined through failure, and transmitted through demonstration and apprenticeship. In the end, that steady flame, illuminating a Viking longhouse, represented far more than light. It embodied human determination to push back darkness, to create warmth and community against the cold, and to demonstrate that with understanding and skill, even the humblest materials could sustain life through the harshest conditions. That flame, burning for 24 hours on a single fill of rendered fat, was a declaration. We are here. We endure. We master our environment. And that ancient flame still has lessons to teach us today.